There is a reason the United States became the most powerful economic force the world has ever seen. It was not inevitable. It was not simply a matter of geography, nor merely the product of military victories. Empires have possessed land before. Nations have won wars before. Civilizations have commanded armies and still faded into history. What separated the modern United States from the long line of fallen empires was something quieter, something less visible, something that did not march across battlefields or wave flags from fortresses. It was an idea about how wealth is created, how societies coordinate, and how individuals pursuing their own improvement can unintentionally build something far larger than themselves. And in the year 1776, as muskets fired and revolutionaries declared independence in Philadelphia, that idea was being published in a thick volume across the Atlantic by a Scottish philosopher named Adam Smith. It is almost poetic that the same year America declared political independence, the intellectual foundation of economic independence was laid in Europe. One revolution broke political chains. The other explained how free people could build prosperity without central command. While Thomas Jefferson drafted words that would echo across centuries, Adam Smith was finishing a manuscript that would quietly redefine what it meant for a nation to be rich. The book was titled An Inquiry into the Nature and Causes of the Wealth of Nations. It did not promise spectacle. It did not promise moral sermons. It promised explanation, and its explanation would change the world. To understand why Smith's work mattered so deeply to the American story, we must first understand the world he was writing against. For centuries, European powers operated under a system now known as mercantilism. Under mercantilism, wealth was measured in gold and silver. Nations competed to accumulate precious metals, believing that national power was tied directly to the amount of treasure locked in vaults. Trade was tightly regulated. Governments granted monopolies to favored companies. Colonies existed to provide raw materials and serve as captive markets. Tariffs were imposed not merely for revenue, but to prevent foreign competition. Economic life was seen as something fragile and dangerous, requiring constant oversight and control. If individuals were left to their own devices, it was feared chaos would follow. In this worldview, economic freedom was not a virtue. It was a risk. Governments believed they had to orchestrate production, supervise trade, and restrict exchange in order to preserve national strength. Wealth was seen as finite, something that one country could only gain at the expense of another. Trade was a battlefield, not a partnership. Prosperity was not created, it was captured. This was the dominant framework of economic thinking for generations. Adam Smith looked at this system and saw something deeply flawed. He saw inefficiency, stagnation, artificial scarcity, and policies that served powerful interests rather than ordinary people. Most importantly, he saw that wealth was not treasure sitting idle in royal vaults. Wealth was the total flow of goods and services available to society. It was the bread baked in ovens, the tools forged in workshops, the clothing stitched in textile mills, the ships built in dockyards. It was productivity. It was output. It was the capacity of a nation to supply the needs and wants of its population. This shift in definition was revolutionary. If wealth is production, then the key to prosperity is not hoarding gold, but increasing productivity. If wealth is the abundance of goods, then the path to national strength lies not in restriction, but in enabling exchange and specialization. Smith redirected the entire conversation. Instead of asking how governments could accumulate more treasure, he asked how societies could produce more value. At the heart of his explanation was a deeply counterintuitive insight about human behavior. Many moral thinkers of his time believed that social harmony required individuals to suppress self-interest and act primarily for the common good. The fear was that if people pursued their own advantage, society would fragment into selfish competition. Order, it was assumed, required guidance from above, either from monarchs, ministers, or centralized authorities who would direct economic life like a general directing troops. Smith observed something different. He noticed that daily life already depended on countless exchanges between strangers who had no affection for one another. When you buy bread from a baker, the transaction does not occur because the baker is your friend. It occurs because he seeks income and you seek food. Both parties benefit, not out of charity, but out of mutual advantage. The butcher does not provide meat because he is virtuous. He provides it because selling meat sustains his livelihood. In pursuing his own interest, he satisfies yours. In pursuing yours, you sustain his. This mechanism, voluntary exchange, guided by self-interest, creates patterns of coordination that no central planner could fully replicate. Smith described this phenomenon with the now famous metaphor of the invisible hand. It was not meant to suggest magic or mysticism. It was a way of capturing the idea that when individuals operate within a framework of law and moral norms, their separate decisions align into coherent social outcomes. The invisible hand is simply the recognition that order can emerge from freedom. Consider the complexity of a modern supply chain. A simple cotton shirt depends on farmers growing cotton, workers processing fibers, factories weaving fabric, designers cutting patterns, seamstresses sewing pieces, transport workers shipping goods, retailers stocking shelves, and customers making purchases. Each participant acts for personal reasons: wages, profit, survival, advancement. Yet the end result is a coordinated outcome that delivers affordable clothing to millions. No single authority commands every step. The system operates through decentralized signals, prices, costs, demand, competition. Smith understood that this decentralized coordination depends on trust. Markets cannot function where deception dominates. Contracts must be honored. Weights and measures must be reliable. Property rights must be protected. Far from advocating moral indifference, Smith believed that commercial society depends on shared ethical standards. Honesty reduces transaction costs. Reputation encourages fairness. Justice ensures stability. Without these foundations, voluntary exchange collapses into exploitation. Another pillar of Smith's framework was the division of labor. He observed that productivity increases dramatically when tasks are divided into specialized roles. In his famous example of the pin factory, he described how manufacturing a simple pin involves numerous distinct steps: drawing out the wire, straightening it, cutting it, sharpening the point, forming the head, attaching it, polishing, and packaging. One worker attempting to complete all steps alone might produce only a handful of pins per day. But when labor is divided and each worker focuses on a specific task, output multiplies exponentially. The gains are not merely incremental, they are transformative. This principle would later define the Industrial Revolution. It would power American manufacturing in the 19th century. It would enable mass production in the 20th. It would underpin technological innovation in the 21st. Specialization allows individuals to refine skills, reduce wasted time, and invent tools tailored to specific tasks. As productivity rises, goods become cheaper, more accessible, and more abundant. But specialization only deepens when markets expand. In a small village, extreme specialization is impractical. If there are only a handful of consumers, there is no demand to support highly specialized roles. As markets grow, through trade, infrastructure, population growth, division of labor intensifies. Large cities enable professions that small towns cannot sustain. National markets enable industries that local economies cannot support. Global trade enables complex production networks that span continents. The United States, emerging as an independent nation, would eventually become one of the greatest beneficiaries of this dynamic. Its vast territory, expanding population, navigable rivers, and growing transportation networks created conditions for large-scale markets. As internal trade flourished, specialization deepened, factories multiplied, railroads connected distant regions, agricultural output fed urban populations, industrial goods reached rural communities. Smith's theoretical insights found fertile ground in American soil. And yet Smith did not present a utopian vision. He recognized tensions inherent in commercial society. While division of labor increases productivity, it can also narrow the intellectual life of workers whose tasks become repetitive and mechanical. While markets create wealth, they also generate inequality. While self-interest coordinates exchange, it does not eliminate conflict over wages, profits, or power. Smith understood that economic systems are complex and dynamic, capable of both harmony and strain. Still, the central insight endures. Wealth is not imposed from above. It is generated from below. It arises when individuals are free to exchange, specialize, innovate, and compete within a stable legal framework. It grows when markets expand and productivity rises. It thrives when moral norms support voluntary cooperation. In 1776, America declared that political authority derives from the consent of the governed. In the same year, Adam Smith described how economic order can arise from the voluntary actions of individuals. The convergence of those two revolutions, one political, one economic, would shape the trajectory of modern history. The principles articulated in The Wealth of Nations would echo through American industrial expansion, through debates over regulation and enterprise, through the rise of financial markets and technological innovation. They would inform policies, inspire leaders, and provoke critics. The skyscrapers that define American cities, the highways that connect them, the industries that power them, and the markets that sustain them all operate within patterns Smith first explained. His invisible hand does not eliminate human ambition. It channels it. It does not erase conflict. It organizes exchange. It does not guarantee justice. It requires institutions to uphold it. But it provides the intellectual architecture for understanding how free individuals can generate extraordinary collective prosperity. And that idea, born in a small Scottish town in the same year America was born, continues to shape the modern world.